Welcome back to our Meet the Coaches series at the Center for Equus Coaching. We are a community of coaches who believe that partnering with horses can help transform the way we connect with ourselves, others, and the world around us. I'm Travis Stock, one of the instructors here at the Center for Equus Coaching. After you've watched this video, please explore the other videos on our channel. There you'll meet more of the instructors and Equus coaches, get a behind-the-scenes look at what it's like to be an Equus coach, and learn more about the programs and certifications we offer. Today, I'm excited to be joined by one of our international coaches, Kelly Eide. Kelly is an Equus Coaching Master Facilitator who acts as a corporate advisor focused on leadership in the United Arab Emirates. Plus, she and I share a love for Arizona, one of the states where we hold Equus Coaching on-sites. So without further ado, welcome, Kelly.
Thanks, Travis. I'm
You're in
happy.
Arizona currently, aren't you?
I am.
It's funny to come on here and introduce you as one of the international coaches and have you just be right in Arizona.
Well, it's funny. I went to business school. My MBA is from a school in Arizona called Thunderbird. And then it was Equus coaching that a decade later brought me back to Arizona. And now would you believe that my parents, who spent 30 years in the United Arab Emirates, live here? So I have this beautiful, circuitous, circular relationship with the world and with Arizona.
So, Kelly, there's so much I want to talk to you about sort of being an international Equus coach. We've only been talking so far with people who live in the United States and are working here. But I also want to hear just basically the origin story of how you got to Equus coaching. So tell me a little bit about how you found out about the Center for Equus Coaching and how you got here.
Wow. Well, I got here by accident. I
Yeah, same,
the,
same.
the the story starts with a big transition in the financial crisis of 2008-9. My team and I, corporate strategy team, I had a very typical corporate career, 9 to 5, and we were the fourth round of layoffs at my company. And at that moment, an opportunity arose. I first went to Africa, which is where I met Coel, and that makes a long story longer. But Equus coaching, I came as an invitation from Coel, the founder of the institute, as well as Martha Beck, to photograph one of the first Equus coaching experiences that they were doing. So I came here, and not only did I go through the experience myself, but I had the opportunity to witness about 30 other people at 200 times Zoom. And I would go home in the evenings and process the pictures, and I would be like, wow, I had these beautiful images of people, and I would get excited, and I came back in the morning and I was like, oh, I have to show you. And I would show people these pictures, and they said, can we buy your pictures? And I said, well, they're for the workshop facilitators. That was the intention, but sure, why not? So I ended up making up a product, these photo books, where I had taken what were effectively before and after pictures of the people and made a photo book for them and put the key coaching tip. So it was like, for the perfectionist, no big deal. Now you know. Or use what you need when you need it for the hard trier like me. And so people bought these books, and the facilitator said to me, well, we're doing another workshop next week. Why don't you stay? And there are times in your life when you have time and not money, or you have money and not time. But this was a moment that I had this. So the most interesting thing was, after I had lost my job, of course, the first thing we all do is go, okay, how much time do I have? And I had calculated my number. What's the number that I need to live? The cost of my mortgage, my car, whatever expenses I had. And through selling those photo books, I made exactly $350 more than my number. And
You're
wow,
kidding.
that got my attention, because what did I do an MBA for? If this is happening by accident, surely I can figure out how to do this on purpose. And I want to share my own first experience with the horse, because what was so powerful for me, I'm sure every Equus coach has had this, where somebody goes, how do you know that? as if I'm psychic and I know something about them that I couldn't possibly know. And it's because I see it. And for me, it was like that. A pattern that was so familiar to me showed up. So the facilitator did a demonstration and they threw the line and they moved their arm like this and like this. And I thought, so I went in and I watched closely and I studied it and I said, okay, now I'm going to do it correctly. And
Mm.
I went into the round pen myself and I threw the line and I moved my hand like this. And after 2 minutes, she said, "Kelly, what do you notice about the horse?" And I was like, "The horse?" I
What
threw
horse?
the line. I moved my hand like this. Am I doing it wrong? And that was the pattern. I'm like, that's my pattern. And that was where somebody, it was like I was transparent in that I always tried to study, I would do my best, and then I would succeed by high performance.
Mhm.
And that pattern was so familiar to me. I was like, I have 19 years of education. Why has nobody ever taught me this before? And that was when my journey of apprenticeship began. I said to Coel, "Where are you going next?" And together we went to South Africa. I invited her to the UAE. We went to Virginia and Arizona and places across the United States. And that was even before there was an institute for Equus coaching, but I
Mhm.
just needed to know
Mhm.
because it was so powerful to unravel a habit or a pattern that was completely in a blind spot that I said, I must learn this. So I didn't grow up around horses. That was probably my fourth or fifth experience with a horse. Everything I've learned about horses, I've learned through this process. And what a blessing. My
Mm.
life changed.
You and I have so much overlap about like my one of my first Equus coaching experiences was like taught me the exact thing that I keep working on that is so my pattern, which is around perfectionism and trying to achieve and trying to like earn value by being successful at something, even this weird thing that is just like standing in a round room with a horse. My very first session, I was remember thinking, I need to succeed at this. I need to be great at this. I'm like, and it's like something that I just was experiencing for the first time and had never been around horses that often and didn't have a relationship to it. So there's so many things that I resonate in your story with, which is like it changed my life just the first time. I didn't
Yeah.
have to like work really hard at it. Just that first insight shifted me and changed the trajectory of my life in such a powerful way that it's like if I had tried to get in and try to script my life from there on, I couldn't have. Like that, it just was like, oh, here's a plot twist that you didn't see coming, and watch how it changes your life. So, thank you for sharing your story because I so feel similarly about how it changed my life.
Yeah. I think that's why I'm so passionate about moving into spaces with wild horses and young
Mm,
horses. There's one particular farm where the owners supported me from the very beginning, and they have a breeding barn. And so spending time with the foals and spending time with the yearlings. And even this morning, as I walked down the Salt River, I spent so much time in my life wanting to achieve my way into
mhm,
being loved and achieve my way into or perform my way into being enough. And when you walk into a herd or when you are welcomed in that way so generously, just because you're you,
mm,
they don't care how you look, how you perform. They look at you, they check, you're safe. The food's great. Come on in. You're welcome. And that generosity never ceases to move me.
mm. It's really clear to me that that lesson has really been something you have done a lot of work around because from the moment I met you, you have always felt like somebody that was comfortable being who you are and not performing who you think you need to be. And so it's interesting to hear that that was one of the things you gathered because I've always assumed based on having met you after that lesson hit you was like, oh, you've always been really good at this. I guess what that points out is how much you really took that on and integrated it and have allowed that to give you permission to just show up. And I feel it so clearly from you.
Thank you.
Yeah. You mentioned wild horses, and I think it's something that's really interesting because I don't know that many people who are not connected to the horse world recognize that in the United States and in other parts of the world too, there are wild horse herds that
Mhm,
roam typically on Bureau of Land Management, the BLM land in
mhm.
different states. And so there are some near the Salt River in Arizona. There are some in Oregon. There are many of them. So I know your relationship to this wild herd in Arizona is a really important one. Anything you want to share about these wild horses?
I really just think it's funny because someone asked me, obviously, as a photographer, I came into Equus coaching through photography, and I love to take pictures of nature and the things that people think, wow, I've never seen that, because it's a natural wild behavior. But honestly, what I love so much is just being in the herd. I actually remember driving 900 miles by myself. I didn't realize I had driven in silence for 900 miles from Minnesota to South Dakota to see a herd of wild horses. And I will never forget how the whole herd architected itself to protect the foals,
Uh,
and I have this incredible image that still, I have a picture of it, but that lives in my mind, of that herd, just their legs with the foal on the ground. And I was down at the foal's height, and the whole herd was there just in quiet presence, caring for its future and the
mm,
possibility of that. And of course, seeing them run across the American, like in South Dakota, I was able to see them run a ridge line. And that picture lives on the wall in my home. And what I love so much about it is you can see there's clearly a leader at the
mm,
front. You can see that some are in pairs and some are, some have a friend with them. And there's a few on their own out to the side, sentinels, but everyone is in agreement.
mhm,
Everyone is going the same direction. And
mhm.
that is such a powerful lesson when you take that to work with groups of people. And that really lives at the heart of the type of work that I do in terms of Equus coaching and with companies.
It feels like an important lesson just as a human living in our world right now.
Oh, isn't
Like
it?
that it's one of my favorite lessons that comes from just observing herds of horses, whether they're wild or domesticated, is that you can see a communal animal, much like we are communal animals. You can see leadership play out, you can see conflict play out, you can see boundaries play out, you can see all of these different things in a horse herd. It's just held differently.
Right.
And for us as humans, it gives us models to start questioning our current ways of like in Western cultures being very like individual
Mhm.
and sort of isolated from each other, or our concepts of leadership and what leadership needs to look like. It lets us question our models that have been given to us and explore, is this working for me or is there something else? And I think the natural world gives us so many different ways of doing it if we pay attention. So I appreciate you sharing that. And I absolutely can see how that applies to the corporate and to sort of groups of people. But just thinking about our groups of people that we live in and around, and like there's such a we're in such a divisive time right now, and
Mm,
your sort of conversation about like they're all in their different areas and yet they're all in the same direction.
yeah.
And I think there's something really powerful about that.
During COVID, I felt we were so isolated, and I felt like people were really pointing fingers at each other. That person's not wearing a mask, or that person walked too close to me or sneezed near me. And I thought, we've all forgotten how to share. And so I
Mm,
created a program that I called Sharing Space, which is effectively a meditation circle, where I created a circle of chairs for people to sit in that were socially distanced, and I facilitated people. The horses were in first, so everybody got to choose. The invitation was to enter in and share space with them. So I facilitated getting people in safely to the degree of their comfort. And then we sat for, the experiences were usually about an hour. And I did more than 100 of those just
wow.
for, and every single time was different. And I sat with so many different horses and so many different people. And it was really just a remembrance of how do we share space together. I'll never forget one of the very first times this horse, we were 6 people. It was and this horse started on the right and chewed a circle around all 6 of us for about 15 minutes and then walked dead through the center of the circle. And then the other 2 horses, that horse would not allow them to come near us. And at the
Huh.
end of that, I was like, that's a symbol. What is that? A circle with a line through the middle. And I went home and I Googled it and I was like, that's the symbol theta.
Mm.
And theta is sort of the space between conscious and unconscious. And I just thought, you know, I can't say that this is what happened, but the horse physically did that. She chewed a circle and then a line through the middle. So I can't say that the horse like enwrapped our humans into the symbol of theta and then protected us. But honestly, I could think that thought every day for the rest of my
Uh-huh.
life and be delighted.
I know. I like your meaning making around that.
After that, I would offer them and some people came 12 times because they began to realize that you can't go to the river twice because it's not the same river and you're not the same you. And so it was just a really powerful way to navigate that time of transition.
Mhm.
And and I loved it. It was a time when companies were not doing any Equus work. So I survived that time in a business without corporate by doing hundreds of circles like that. But I'm so glad I began that. And I began that because I felt we needed to remember how to share space. And
Yeah.
horses know how to share space.
Yeah. That is such a it definitely continues to feel like, something we've lost the ability for, that sharing space, especially when there's difference of opinion or conflict, or it just becomes much harder to share space, so it's a beautiful way of allowing the horses to help us relearn how to share space with each other. And I
Yeah.
think what that story points out so beautifully is, and I love how you were able to acknowledge, like, I don't know, I can't say that the horse did that on purpose, drew that design for that reason, but that meaning, that story delights me to no end. I love that you can point that out because that's so much of what we do in Equus coaching is that we actually ask our clients to observe what the horses are doing and to explore what do they think that means that the horse is doing that. And well, none of us are actually able to talk horse and actually ask them questions and ask, what does that mean when you do that? But we
Mm.
can make some guesses. And a lot of what we do as Equus coaches is really explore what's the meaning that creates for you. And does that meaning serve you? Does that delight you? And do you want to carry that with you? Or does that meaning make you feel rejected or abandoned or like you don't belong? Or and how do you want to evolve that? So I
Right.
love that story just because it points out the power of meaning making. We as humans are meaning making, and the horses allow us to kind of reflect on our meaning making and see how it is shaping our experience of the world when we make meaning in certain ways.
Absolutely. And I think in a corporate group, then when you are allowed, when you generously give your witnessing attention to somebody
Hmm.
else as they make meaning of a situation, the level of empathy and understanding, and therefore the potential you have to co create and work together is exponential. And so it's such a powerful practice to take into the world. Because how many times have we had an interaction with somebody where we've gone away and go, oh, that person just doesn't like me? And
Hmm.
maybe it's really just what they're going through. But when you see it with a horse, you then depersonalize it because you're like, oh, that's familiar, but it's not about me. Because there it is with a horse, and that's not me. And so we build so much empathy, and the possibility for us to do things together expands in such a major way.
Ah, beautifully said. So, one of the things I like to challenge the people I talk with for these conversations about is to Equus coaching, we all understand it because we're doing it all the time, but sometimes it's not the easiest thing to describe in words. It's easier to experience than it is to describe. but I'd like to challenge people to describe it anyway. So if you're meeting with a new company, you're pitching this, or you're trying to work with it, how do you pitch or talk about Equus coaching to somebody who's never heard about it before?
I really don't explain.
Yeah.
I say I partner with horses to help humans explore leadership, communication, building culture, innovation, creative problem solving. I use those sort of labels because the companies that I'm working with, that's often what they're looking for. So I
Yeah.
want to lead them into sharing, how can I support you? How can I help you with this? And so, from that very, very basic introduction, we're not talking about any concept or we're not talking about horses. We're talking about, where do you have a communication challenge? So, for example, I had a minister of a federal government entity who was progressing in her own career. So, she brought a group of 15, the people that were going to become the three main teams in that ministry. And we did, can you imagine, one on one work for 15 people? That means if people were spending 10, 15 minutes for their turn, they were giving almost 2.5 hours to their colleagues.
Yeah.
Imagine what you learn about people when you give them that kind of witnessing attention. And so that's what she wanted, is she wanted to empower those 15 people, when you take her out of the equation, that they knew each other well enough to hit the ground running and be a high performing herd from the get-go, because of course that's a wonderful reflection on her leadership, and it's a wonderful opportunity for everybody to grow. So I loved an event like that. That was a beautiful event. So to go back to, how do I explain Equus coaching? I don't really explain Equus
Uh-huh.
coaching. Say, here's some concepts. Tell me what of those is important for you. And then I think that's where I bring my past corporate strategy career, is to design the experience that will solve the challenge that they have.
Mhm. Yeah, that's what I love about Equus coaching is like there's a sort of a foundational set of like values and tools and things that we utilize, and yet it's very flexible. It can meet a lot of different challenges. It can meet the moment. It can solve lots of problems for people. It can do anything from like deep grief, intimate work
Sure.
to corporate strategy work. It can do relationship development in romantic partnerships, but it can also help someone access self-worth.
Yeah.
It can meet a lot of different challenges, and it can meet a lot of different perceived problems that need some support and fixing, or need new approaches and experimentation in the approach to that. I think people maybe sometimes assume, how is this horse going to help me with my marriage? How is this horse going to help me with the leadership change management happening in my organization? The reality is as a client, you don't need to know how it relates to that. That's our job as coaches. We'll help you figure that part out. We'll help you connect the dots. But I have yet to come in my, and tell me if you feel this way, but I've yet to come in my own Equus coaching up with a problem that I haven't been able to support utilizing the Equus coaching experience. I haven't run in to be like, oh, this isn't the right fit for that. Have you?
No, really
Yeah.
no. Because
Yeah.
I think, like, in a corporate group as well, we might be talking about corporate strategy, but each one of those individuals is showing up with their whole life experience and
Mhm.
the their presence in that moment. And it's an honor when somebody brings out vulnerability in front of their colleagues. We forget how intimate our workplace relationships are. We spend as much time with those people as we do with our families in some instances. And when someone feels safe enough to be vulnerable in that space, it's a leader to the softer side. And it invites everybody to be their whole self. And the horses are reflecting what's really present. If somebody isn't in integrity with themselves in that moment, if they're if they have the courage to do it, there's an opportunity there for that also to be healed, whether it's healed because we talked about it through coaching, or whether that's just what is residual from that experience that they've had.
Hmm.
So a lot of the ways I support an experience is I'll work with materials, lots of questions to reflect on. And I tell people you don't have to answer 20 questions, but there's going to be one or two of those questions that are for you, and journal on that. Let that be what you take through this. And I never hear what those are except when people share it with me afterwards. But it's so powerful when people come back. And I think that's where I'm grateful that, as one example, I had a CEO come through a professional organization, through the Young Presidents Organization, and she had an experience herself. Then she came and brought her 7-team board management team. And now, a week from now, I'm going to see 24 people from her office. So I'm delighted by that, because that means each one of those relationships is taking her on a deeper and deeper journey, and she's gifting it into her environment to help shape the space. And we do that all the time with horses. How can we shape this space to achieve something when we're
Mm.
doing a herding exercise? And so that's been a nice journey for me, is when I'm beginning to see companies again and again, or cohorts of, like, in a month, I'm going to see the third cohort of a women in leadership program from one company. And they just won an award for their women in leadership program that I helped them create in the beginning, and that we begin with an Equus experience. So I'm just so delighted by that, because I think the more people that can experience this, the more ways their home life will change, their work life will change, their relationships will change. So I agree. I don't think there's anything that isn't impacted by you, me, or anyone becoming more fully expressed and more fully themselves.
That's so beautiful. I love that invitation, especially even in the corporate world. I think so much messaging is around leaving parts of yourself at home.
Right.
You got to leave whole section, and then you just get to bring this little bit of yourself to it. And I think that's a really beautiful invitation that horses can really drive home, which is because horses don't ever leave parts of themselves behind or parts of the herd behind. And so it is about, like, how do you bring all of yourself? How do you risk vulnerability? How do you risk being seen truly?
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that we let go of healthy boundaries in our work relationships, but, like, how do you stop sectioning off parts of yourself and leaving that away so that you can only perform it this way? So I love that. That's kind of sounds like a core part of what you're inviting people in terms of your corporate work.
And I think I'm being invited into that. It's a
Hmm.
lesson that life is bringing to me. In 2 years ago, COP28, the climate change conference, the UNFCCC climate change conference, was in Dubai, and somebody asked me to support some initiatives for that. And 2 years later, I'm still a strategic advisor for that entity, because what I've discovered is that what we're doing in the climate space is helping people value nature, come closer to nature, steward nature, and recognize themselves as part of it. And that's what I do with the horses. It's
Mm.
just it's a way for me to fully express myself, and all that education that I once had. And it makes, where I live, it's a seasonal work that I do with horses, and it allows my sort of body of work to be fully expressed and fully
Mm.
and even more complete.
Seeing that you are in the UAE Dubai area, are there any cultural considerations that come into your play as an Equus coach that make working uniquely as an international coach? Like, if somebody else was considering becoming an Equus coach, but they were like, "Oh, I don't know if that works obviously in the US, but wouldn't work here."
Mm.
Is there anything that you would share to somebody that's experiencing that?
Honestly, I think it may even make me a better Equus coach. I think
Mm.
that, for example, if I have a group of 20 people, it is normal for there to be 18 nationalities. probably
Hmm.
closer to 30 languages, at least 3 religions. Like, the degree of diversity, it's like a master class in cross-cultural communication. And so, but within that master class, within that diversity, there's so many challenges. And so I support many people in navigating those cross-cultural pieces. And I think that the horses help you do that
Yeah.
really gently and really subtly, which helps you also move in international spaces more effectively. As I said in my first experience, I was in a place where I was thinking, okay, I need to do this, and I was thinking about my side of what needed to happen in my agenda. And yet horses invite us into a feedback loop where we're paying attention externally. And my agenda, my 9-point agenda, I might already be at point 8 and I've just begun. So do I need to do 1 through 7? It makes me really agile to
Mm.
work that diversity, and I think that agility is really horse-like.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, horses really taught me how to be more agile. I can be kind of a stubborn, slow to change kind of person, and horses don't. You just have to learn how to be agile and flexible and change directions and have another plan, and,
Mhm.
that's such a beautiful learning that they've given me, is they've loosened me up a little bit. Well, Kelly, it's been so lovely to talk to you about, your work and how your views on Equus coaching. Are there any upcoming offers that you wanna highlight that to make sure that people know about?
Not really. I really do a lot of work with people, but there's a couple. So I have a family that lives on 4 continents. So as I said, why did I do an MBA if I can't figure out how to do this? So I've spent quite a lot of time figuring how can I do Equus coaching in the UK where I'll see my sister and my nieces, and where how can I do Equus coaching in Australia? And that has taken me to places like the Wolgan Valley, a carbon neutral valley that's protected in Australia. It's taken me to Nihi Sumba in Indonesia, which is the next level kind of magic where you get up in the morning and the horses run the beach. Um,
Hmm.
Wild horses run the beach. It's just beautiful. And those are places where I take people. So that would be an offer that if somebody is curious, I would love for them to reach out to me,
Hmm.
because some of those places are horse heaven, and the opportunities to work with the horses there are really unique.
Beautiful. So what's the best way for somebody to get in contact with you if they're interested?
Through my website,
Okay.
experiencetrueleadership.com. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kelly, for joining me and for sharing your experiences with Equus Coaching. It's been a true joy to connect with you.
It's nice to see you.
If you've been listening and you're interested in finding out more about Equus Coaching, simple website, equuscoach.com. You'll find more about our offerings, our certifications, the personal development things that we're offering. So if anything is found interesting, feel free to go to equuscoach.com to find more. Thank you again, Kelly, for joining me. And until our next episode.